Drive profile. Welcome to the next level.
Battle Mania, known as Troubleshooter in the West, is a shoot-'em-up developed by Vic Tokai. The game brands a funny, lighthearted anime aesthetic that doesn't take itself too seriously. I'd even say the game progresses much like an episode of an anime of that era, which I'll mention more about later. The story of Battle Mania is about a pair of troubleshooters named Mania Otori and Maria Haneda. Their business revolves around taking on odd jobs and unconventional missions. One day they are contacted by the butler of a king who has requested their services. It turns out that the king's son was kidnapped and held hostage by an evil man named Morkstein. Mania and Maria head out to retrieve him. Battle Mania's gameplay is somewhat reminiscent of Capcom's Forgotten Worlds, where the player commands two characters on screen. While this may seem confusing, it's not difficult at all. In fact, the controls are quite simple. Players control Mania and Maria with the D-pad. B is used to shoot and can be held down for rapid shots. C is used to turn Maria either forward or backward. You'll be switching between both sides when enemies try to flank you. Maria is completely invincible, so the player doesn't need to worry about her taking enemy fire. A drone option will also join the player, which enables you to use a special weapon. A button is used to launch it. This weapon is selected prior to starting the stage, and there are a few to choose from, such as the lightning storm, tidal wave, blizzard, and avalanche. Use of special weapons are dictated by the charge meter. Every time you use it, the meter will deplete and then begin to refill automatically over time. There is no penalty for using it, so take advantage. Although if you try launching it before the meter is up, Mania will scold the player. Some of the item pickups include a bonus point, a speed up, a speed down, a power up, which by collecting 2 provides additional fire to your option, and a life up, which increases Mania's hit point. You can also increase your HP to as many points as you can obtain past the amount of HP you start with. So, for every 30,000 points, your HP will also increase. As far as lives are concerned, you don't have any. Once you are out of hit points, it's game over, with a fixed amount of continues and no way to gain any either. While this may seem unforgiving, Battle Mania isn't too difficult. I mean, most stages will offer a fair amount of challenge. Some segments like moving while the screen vertically scrolls or avoiding obstacles break up any monotony while playing. The main thing you'll probably have to get used to is having 2 characters on screen at once, but other than that, I don't see any hurdles to get through. In the prototype version of Battle Mania, both Maria and your option had a hitbox, but thankfully that was cut out, as that'd be incredibly unbearable. The only hitbox that is active is for Maria, so no need to fret your eyes all over the screen. Once the stage is complete, the game progresses by having cutscenes between characters, and this is an aspect I really like, as the entire game has a comedic atmosphere going for it. Visually, Battle Mania is easy on the eyes with some colorful graphics, sporting a cool anime aesthetic ranging from designs seen on the box art to the interactions between characters. The main characters, Mania and Maria, were inspired heavily by the 1985 anime Dirty Pair. Their last names, Otori and Haneda, were taken from the Otori station near the Haneda KQ airline where Sega's HQ resided. In the game's credits, you see that the director's alias is Takiara the Barbarian, librarian in Studio Ucho Tetsujin. It's clear that this person is a fan of Space Iron Man Kyodyne, a live-action tokusatsu show from Japan. Now, the US and Japanese versions have some minor differences when it comes to the graphics, and this is mainly because the US release came out before the Japanese, which is a very rare circumstance. A few things were tweaked or outright changed, most notable being the title screen, going from a simple design to a more vibrant text. Other visual changes were made to better reflect the audience or improve the original, such as the ending cutscene where the king appears more detailed compared to the US release. It's not made very clear as to why the game released first in the West, but speculation suggests it was the intention of Sega, the publisher. However, in Japan, Battle Mania was self-published by Vic Tokai 9 months later, which gave the team time to make any changes or improvements to the graphics that they saw fit. Self-published games are somewhat unusual, but the funding for the studio's projects came from a petroleum company. More on this in a bit. On the audio side, Battle Mania's sound is solid. The music was composed by Hiroto Kano from a company named Graphic Research. Sound effects and PCM samples were done in-house by Fumito Tamayama. This includes some of the jeers and screams by the main characters. The compositions are great, with many tracks sporting an aggressive beat. Some of the score sounds like it was composed for an episode of an anime, if that makes any sense. It certainly has that vibe. PCM sample rate is clear and super punchy. Percussion is a tiny bit louder than the lead melodies, but I have a sneaking suspicion this was intentional. Overall, pretty good stuff. My favorite tracks include Stage 1, Boss Theme Number 2, and all parts of the final boss BGM. Take a listen so you can have a good idea of what I'm talking about. The creator of Battle Mania is a designer who goes by the alias of Tachyon. He initially thought of games as a pastime for obnoxious kids, but it all changed when he was introduced to the Namco arcade game Mappy. Tachyon fell in love with the medium and decided to pursue a career in game development. He applied to various companies including Namco, but was promptly rejected. Desperate to find a job, he applied to the Tokai Gas Company in Shizuoka, Japan. The employer informed him that a division of the company for video games was being established soon, so with this in mind, he agreed to work. The division was eventually named the Vic Tokai, which stands for Visual Information Company. It was an interesting start for the alumnus, as he had never even used a computer before and had to quickly adapt into the role of designer. From this point on, Tachyon would gain experience by working on games for various systems, and eventually he would start to trek on the Mega Drive. His first endeavor for the console was the solid shooter named Whip Rush. After development was finished, Tachyon felt unsatisfied with the product, citing a lack of creative expression, so he started to brainstorm a new idea for a game. This title started out as a Sega arcade game, which was based on an old prototype from years before. After pitching his idea to the rest of the company, they were not very enthusiastic, so Tachyon fought tooth and nail to get his vision off the ground. Eventually, more staff took notice of his efforts and began assisting this new project. Battle Mania's development lasted under a year, and Tachyon reflects on this by saying, "Because of its slightly strange development process, I finished the game in 1990, but it didn't get released until 1991. I oversaw design, scheduling, programming, graphics, music, PR, and sales. Of course, most of the work was done by my team of rebel developers, so I was mainly acting as support. I did do the pixel art for the player character though. The staff were main programmer Takada, boss programmer Watanabe, enemy programmer Sugimura, graphics Seki and another junior, and sound by Team Hyakumen Goku. I think that's everyone. From a technological point of view, there were no real problems. I was never very good at compression technology, but my junior employee Ishihara worked some magic and made something really special, a ring buffer using dynamic Huffman coding. In interviews, Takion has expressed his love for Sega and his dislike for Nintendo. This mainly stems from the fact that studio budgets were cut in favor of projects being developed for the Super Famicom. Frustrated, Takion expressed his disdain by including a special animation of Mania stomping on a Super Famicom console. This can be accessed by plugging a controller in the second port and holding down the C button while booting up the game. A fax was sent to all Sega development studios asking them to refrain from using imagery that hurt other companies' trademarks or characters. I think the only reason nothing happened at the time was the power of the Sainsubo president and the fact that Sega themselves didn't like Nintendo all that much. Battle Mania was released in the month of November 1991 in the US and March 6, 1992 in Japan. A Japan exclusive sequel titled Battle Mania Daijinja was made, which is leagues better than the first. After this release, not much was seen from the obscure property until both Mania and Maria made a cameo appearance in the Dreamcast RPG Sega Gagaga. And if you don't know what that is, it's actually where I got the first few seconds of the intro for my videos. Anyways, I'll be talking about what happened with Vic Tokai in the second game soon. Hope you enjoyed the video. Later.